Hi guys, let's try to understand how we can deploy the firecracker system end to end. So I just want to confirm that there are three planes I am talking about. The very first one is client side platform, and the client side backend platform, a control plane and worker plane. So first of all, reverse proxy will send the request out and will decrypt the CAD or HA proxy L7 at L7. So this is specialized reverse proxy that only works on the L7. For after that, if there is any kind of sandbox which has been created, or if user wants to create it from the platform itself, such as Daytona gives that access to the users, that they can let to create the sandbox from the platform itself. API request will be given out. API request will be given out in the control plane. Let's consider this as a host one. So right now we go to control plane and worker plane. So control plane is the one who will schedule all the VMs, and after that, if all the VMs are scheduled by the control plane, then we also need to make sure of one more thing, which is that if there is any existing request which is coming out, and we have to send that on that particular host which already have been accessing that VM. So we need to make sure host ID is there before resolving out the worker itself. So host ID will make sure which host to send the request. Now control plane is the one. Now here remote worker decodes JSON and results the user. That's how things work. So this is just a completely scenario that after anything which is working here, it will remote worker decodes that JSON and just send that particular result, and it just returns to the user. But what is happening inside is control plane will just make sure that we have that VMs, and we have that scheduling access. So control plane will make sure that how to send the request and where to send the request, on which host to send the request. So that's why we are not using the load balancer here or any kind of reverse proxy. There are two reasons to not use reverse proxy or ALB. First one is we don't want to give any kind of access to the user for the worker. And second one is also really important, which is if we are using load balancer, then it can cause the violation that we want. It can cause the violation the way we want to send the request on which host. So it can cause the violations into that, because it can randomly send the request at any host that we don't want in our violation. So we really want the restricted flow here, and how to send will be only controlled by our control plane. Now let's talk about, we don't want to give access to the user for the worker, so IP address will be private for worker plane. Either use the IP address and the interface which will talk with worker plane, such as worker interface, I would say. But if you don't want to use any private IP, we also have one more option, which is SSH, HTTP over SSH tunnel. So here our control plane will verify, and SSH key auth verification will be done, and after that host plane can be only talk with the control plane. Now after deployment, we also need to make sure that control plane will be deployed with the following parameters. Geo Linux, we are cross compiling our binary. Also AMD64 just for the Mac, we can change it to the various other planes. Now CGO enabled again for our particular use case, because we don't want external libraries such as of C. We want this entire build in vanilla Golang. Now control plane will auto bootstrap the host plane itself with the following parameters again, and go build randrops command worker. So this if we are using the API here, it means it is cross compiling our control plane, but we are not compiling out our cross plane here. It is working for our worker plane. So for the worker plane, we are choosing out worker endpoint. So it will auto bootstrap the worker plane, and again there is no reverse proxy here. Now if our user wants to access any sandbox URL or want to tunnel um, SSH, want to provision Redis, Postgres, or even want any kind of X sandbox URL, then how we will make sure that this is working well, right? So what we will do, another we will have another reverse proxy here. So that will be completely different, and only we talking with sandbox URLs and the sandbox integration instead of worker, which is mainly helpful for creating, or uh, which is mainly helpful for deploying or creating any kind of, which is main engine. This is our main engine, and this won't talk with any proxy. Only our sandbox URLs or the host that we want to consider out, this will be talking with the user itself. This is our worker which contains Firecracker, all the micro VMs. This is particular micro VM which has the sandbox URL. So client will open the TLS connection. Again, L4 reverse proxy can be used here if we don't want to decrypt anything, and SNA connection will tell us to send at which connection ID. So SNA connection is really important here. So SNA connection is decrypted, or we can say it is visible at layer 4 uh, at layer 4. So if we are using any designed reverse proxy which is really good working at layer 4, then we can use. Also we can use caddy here with some but it has some limitation with binary, so we have to use some library of the caddy if we want to use at L4. After that, we have to make sure where we are giving out our TLS certification. So TLS certification uh, can't be in sandbox URL. If we are giving out a sandbox inside, can't be inside sandbox. If we are giving inside sandbox, then it can be little problematic, because as the sandbox will grow, we have to give this TLS certification in all the sandboxes. That will be really tough to give out. So what we can give is uh, we can hold one reverse proxy and give our TLS certification to the reverse proxy itself, and it will decrypt at the layer 7 application layer, and all the information that we are required we can decrypt through it. So this becomes optional at this point of time. So just in case if we are increasing the we are broadening our use cases, L4 can be used out. So whenever you are using the TLS connection and using out sandbox URL, make sure or have that idea that how L4 can also be triggered from that particular proxy in future. So this was the entire architecture for deploying our Firecracker VM in terms of deployment and tunneling. These are two steps. One is these are two methods. One private, second one is SSH in. We will cross compile worker again. Cross compiling means it can work on any particular OS such as Linux, Windows, because GOS Linux, so underlying OS will be Linux, so it can work on any other platform. So this is cross compiling platform. After that it will copy the build, which is our agent will be copied, and after that it will get started. Now another part is workers. This is like more information about the workers, that how workers are working underneath. I will give information about this in another video. Thanks.